Up next on Tapestry, we're headed to Wyoming County to visit Perry, New York. First up is Gary and Betty Burley, who turned raw milk from their own cows into a thriving artisan cheese business, the East Hill Creamery.
We tasted this cheese and we looked at each other and we said, this is the cheese. This is the one we want to make.
We visit Act 4 Books, a new community-supported bookstore where neighbors aren't just customers, they're investors in a shared literary dream.
It's easy to order stuff on Amazon, but once you have a place like this, it's hard to go back to that when you know you could be going into a cute, cozy little bookstore.
Finally, we meet Josh Rice, Pilar McKay, and Kate Welshofer, three creatives returning home to spark something new through a storytelling revival called the Nameless Club, hosted at Shake on the Lake.
There is a lot of value in what the arts bring to the community.
That's all coming up on Tapestry right after this.
Compact Science is your gateway to the science of everything in our region. Join host Sarah Jane Gomlick-Green and investigate the geology of Niagara Falls, discover the chemistry in sponge candy, and learn how density affects lake effect snow. Watch Compact Science on the Buffalo Toronto Public Media YouTube channel.
From in-depth reporting to musical masterpieces, dramas, and mysteries to local bands, Buffalo Toronto Public Media delivers it all. Stay informed, be inspired, and join us. This is Public Media.
Welcome to Tapestry. I'm your host, Lynn Bader, and today we're headed to Wyoming County and the rolling hills of Perry, New York. Our first stop is East Hill Creamery, where the scent of Alpine-style cheese mingles with the quiet rhythm of pasture-raised cows.
Mike heats it, puts the cultures in, lets the milk set like yogurt, and then he starts the harps, and that's what cuts the set milk into curds.
Gary and Betty Burley didn't set out with a 5-point business plan or a roadmap to artisan cheese fame. They just wanted to build a life together, maybe raise a few cows and a few kids along the way.
A lot of our market, over half, are 3 and 4 and 5-year-old cheeses because people like flavor. They want those really unique, complex flavors that you get from aging.
This is their story, one of grit, laughter, and a romance with farming that still lingers in every wheel they make. Talk to me about those early days. What were your goals as a young family and young farmers?
Oh, we had just gotten married. The house was pretty run down. We couldn't even live in it when we came back from our honeymoon. We were just working 24/7. I had a job in town, and that's basically what supported us until those cows started to milk.
But I always had a dream of wanting to farm because I'd worked on dairies through high school, made a little money for cars and girls. Then I fell in love with this occupation.
And this person sitting next to you.
Yeah, lucky her. So, and we dated several years before we married. So I had a really driving force within me to farm. And that was probably a good thing because there's a lot of times you get discouraged. You kind of live on love. But things came around. I had no preconceived ideas of how farming should be done. Mm-hmm. I just figured it out. This is the way I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And this is the way it's going to work. Trial by error lots of times.
So, Betty, let me ask you, during all of this time, you're at home raising 5 children. Mm-hmm. Are you active on the farm as well?
Oh, yes. Oh, I used to help milk. I used to help bring the cows in from the pasture. I used to help him with set his fences. I can remember taking the kids out. When we first started grazing, we would set up polywire, which is like a temporary fence. Mm-hmm. And so every afternoon after lunch, we'd load the kids up in the bucket of the tractor. Remember that? Mm-hmm. In fact, we had one in a stroller one day, and we took it out there, and they would watch us. You know, they grew up watching us work.
Yeah.
And so when they got old enough to work, they did work.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they had to. They were living on a farm. What do you do, right? Yeah.
We had friends that we traveled with that made cheese in other parts of the country, and we thought this would be kind of neat. Started looking at it. We went to a cheese making course down in Binghamton and spent a day inside a little creamery, and we made our own little pot of cheese from a pot of milk. Mm-hmm. And I always say that's where we drank our Kool-Aid. I would read a lot. We went to a couple courses. Cornell presented a cheese 101 course.
Sure.
We went to New York City to Murray's Cheese, to what they call cheese boot camp for a weekend, and tasted all these upper scale fine cheeses just to see what good cheese should taste like.
Changing your business model and working to start to offer a new product, I would imagine that sort of re-energized you even about dairy farming and what could be possible.
It wasn't a mistake that we settled on this cheese. We were the third year into looking at making cheese, and we ended up in Madison, Wisconsin, where they held their annual meeting. And there was the French there presenting this cheese they call Comté or Gruyere. And so they told a story about the cows going up on the mountains in the summertime or springtime to graze the grass to make, and they make this cheese off this milk. And they presented it to us, and we tasted this cheese, and we looked at each other and we said, "This is the cheese. This is the one we want to make," And
Betty, do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
And one of the founding members was in Mobile. So we told her our little plight and what kind of cheese we wanted to make. She says, "I know somebody in France that could probably help you with this project." And so, lo and behold, shot an email off to him. And of course, he was very excited about wanting to help an American make French-style cheese.
Interesting.
Because he's a consultant. And so we dialogued with him for about a year and a half, and then went to see him.
Hopped on a plane.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And it's just like almost like a romantic story, you just fall in love with, a large cheese plant like this. And all these, eating in France is a way of life.
And every meal includes cheese.
It was one thing to decide this is what we want to do, it was another thing to put it into action. One of our goals was to make the first piece of cheese to be as good as the last. So it was going to require really good equipment, really good expertise to help with the recipe, and a really good facility, which was going to be expensive. And that's where we're sitting now. It was a $6 million project.
And now behind us, right where we're having this conversation,
Yep.
is, you called these the caves?
I call them caves.
Caves.
If you're in Vermont, they call them cellars. But
Okay. Where we have wheels of cheese, more than I can count, certainly. Talk to me a little bit about the cheeses that you offer.
So most people come in our store looking for either a fresh cheese curd or what kind of cheddar have you got? I say, we don't have either. And they give you a blank look like, well, what have you got? So we make basically two kinds of cheese. We make a raclette and we make a Gruyere. So the raclettes are more designed for melting. They're more fruity, tangy. The raclettes are the Gruyères are more buttery, nutty, like a Gruyere. So once we always give out free samples at the store, and once they start tasting them, they all go, well, this is really good. So we have to educate a lot of people about this cheese because the average American doesn't have any clue what it is or what it tastes like.
Because you have hills and valleys, that makes this kind of terrain perfect for producing this kind of cheese.
I call that terroir.
Terroir.
Yes.
Say that one more time.
Terroir.
Terroir. I'll
French
get it
name.
right. Terroir.
Yes.
So you have the perfect terroir in order for your cows to produce the milk that makes this cheese.
Exactly. Our climate is very conducive to a dairy cow. Our topography and our terroir is also very good to grow crops to feed the cows. You walked out into their pastures on the mountains in the Alps of France, and it looked like I was home. We grow the same type of grass.
Wow.
Which to me was, I was kind of blown away by that.
Talk to me about what it's been like for your kids to take part in this venture with you.
Well, our kids have always been very involved in the dairy farm. And I think when Gary and I said, well, we're going to build this big cheese plant, we're going to make cheese, they kind of looked at us like, why? Why after all these years of so much success milking cows do you want to do something different? But that's our style. We like to do things different.
Their story is a testament to what happens when you follow a dream and let it ferment into something extraordinary. Next, we're going to cuddle up with a good book right after this snapshot of Perry history.
On a moonlit summer night in 1855, a group of fishermen cast their lines into Silver Lake. It was meant to be a peaceful evening of fishing, until something monstrous stirred beneath the surface. As they paddled toward shore, a massive, scaly creature suddenly rose from the lake, 8 feet tall, glistening, and terrifying. Word of the Silver Lake Sea Serpent spread fast, hotels filled, curious crowds and monster hunters flooded the area. 2 years later, after a fire destroyed the Walker Hotel, the truth surfaced. The serpent was a hoax. Built by hotel owner A.B. Walker from canvas, wire, and a bit of mischief, all to attract tourists. Yet the idea may have taken roots in an older legend from the Seneca Nation. According to the story, a monstrous slug-like creature once lived in Silver Lake, punishing those who made noise near the water. One stormy night, a lightning strike cast the creature ashore, where Seneca warriors defeated it with bows and arrows. Only then was peace and sound restored to the lake. Today, the serpent lives on in Perry through parades, public art, and joyful celebrations. Because some stories, especially the fun ones, become part of who we are.
Welcome back to Tapestry. In the heart of Perry, a new chapter is being written on Main Street, literally. I sat down for an inspirational conversation with Maggie Peace, a school librarian turned co-founder of Act 4 Books. It's a third space for readers, dreamers, and doers, built on community support and fueled by passion. Maggie, thank you so much for taking some time with me. The bookstore's buzzing, but you're going to step away from the register and the shelves just for a few minutes to talk to us about Act 4 Books. You are a library specialist in a school in the Perry Public Schools?
Yes, I am the school library media specialist in the 9 through 12 building in Perry, right in town. 10 seconds up the road.
10 seconds up the road. What inspired you to wear this extra hat and to be part of founding this very unique bookstore?
This train had been going, already rolling, and Megan and Rick Hauser, my partners, had been looking for this third person to sort of help them, and my master's degree is in information sciences. Behind the scenes, this is a lot of items to have and keep track of and have all the data for. The data management and the inventory management piece is part of having a library and information sciences degree, so not just the books, which obviously is part of the puzzle that I love the most.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. You spent a lot of years fostering a love of reading and a love of books for children. How does that same passion translate into this place for you?
It really helps with, especially in the young adult section, the children's section, sort of not just seeing what's on the bestseller list, but spending the day with kids and seeing what books they resonate with, what books they pick up, just getting that feedback, I guess.
So that is literally a direct connection to your background and how it helps the mission of this bookstore.
Yes.
So Act 4 Books is a community-supported bookstore. Now, just by its title, I think I know what that means, but I'm not really sure. So why don't you talk to me about what does the business model look like for a community-supported bookstore?
Our core group of investors who helped us start in the first place are community members and are kind of investing in this downtown Main Street, and specifically the bookstore here is a big piece of the community support. Another piece is we have a membership program. We have our first book club meeting this month for God of the Woods. It kind of came up because my mom was reading it, Megan was reading it, I was reading it. A couple people had come in and bought it and said, oh, so-and-so had read it, and it was like, we should do we've got our book chosen. We're already all halfway through it.
Sometimes that's the hardest part, right? What are we going to read?
Yeah. Somebody might love romance, and then the next person might say, I don't want to read a romance book, I want to read history, and it's hard to find that balance. But
so you kind of had it figured out.
Yeah, it kind of fell into our lap.
You had the hard part figured out.
It fell into our lap,
all right, great. So you've talked about Megan and Rick. Talk to me about your business partners and what they bring to the table.
I mean, everything. We all wear all the hats, but they are the ones that started this all, and I came on later after the name was chosen and the ball was rolling. We are not the first bookstore in this location. Anne Burlingham years ago started Burlingham Books here, and Megan and Rick raised their children coming to Burlingham Books. And I think that having that space to support literacy and have a place for you to go to with your children was a huge piece of it for them.
Talk to me a little bit about what strengths each of the three of you bring to the table.
Well, Rick is an architect. He is in the architecture firm upstairs as
Okay.
well in the same building. Designed the space, and it's beautiful in here from floor to ceiling. Logo design, a lot of design. He also does most of our order processing, so building the order of thousands of books.
Okay, what about Megan?
And she is kind of, we're all kind of the heart, but she's here during the day with the customers. She does event planning. I think that a big role she's going to step into, as well as we hope to have a nonprofit called Act 4 Community, where it can really support literacy in the community and do these like outreach programs and supply books to kids at no cost. I think that is something she really enjoys doing, that community outreach piece, the events and being the face of the space during the day. People appreciate that more than they think they will until they've experienced it. Having somewhere to go, and again, I've done it. It's easy to order stuff, books and whatever on Amazon, but once you have a place like this, it's hard to go back to that when you know you could be going into a cute, cozy little bookstore and grabbing the book. I think people really enjoy that once they realize they've been missing it.
A bookstore and a library is a place where I think knowledge exists, and yet I think there's a lot of controversy around books these days. And you see that there are many, many, many books that are banned each year. Talk to me about what the philosophy of Act 4 Books is around book banning.
There's less pressure, I guess, on the business, where it's like you don't have to buy a book. I'm not pushing a book on you.
It's a sensitive,
it's a touchy subject.
It's a touchy subject,
Yeah.
but as a bookstore,
Yeah.
you have banned books in this bookstore.
Yes, definitely. And I think it's an education phrase, but especially in the school library world. But there should be windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors in your books, especially with children, that they can.
What do you mean by that?
So a window is you're reading a book and you're able to see through to a world and a life that is unlike yours. A mirror is you're reading a book and you can see yourself reflected in the story. And a sliding glass door is so immersive that you're kind of stepping into a whole new culture that you've never experienced before. And when we talk about it with children, it's important in terms of representation, where no child should only ever be exposed to windows and never see themselves reflected in a mirror. And on the opposite side, no child should only ever have a mirror and never a window to see into something that's different than what they've experienced. I think it's really important in a space where we are supported by the community to also support every member of the community. So people who might not feel represented all the time in the media or popular media, or be afraid to step into a space for whatever reason they might feel unwelcome, that this is a space where they are welcome. They'll find windows, they'll find mirrors, and they'll find sliding glass doors.
Maggie, I don't think I've ever had anyone explain that more beautifully.
Thank you.
Really?
Yeah.
It just makes it very crystal clear to understand the power of literature. How has Act 4 Books changed your life?
Oh, my goodness. Owning a bookstore is one of those things that if you are a book lover, the desire to have a space like this, seeing it come to fruition in the way that it has, and every time I step into the space, I get emotional almost, and I've been here every single day for months, and I still step in and can't believe that it's real. It is heartwarming in a way that words almost can't describe. Total dream come true, and very grateful that Megan Hauser called me that day to chat about books and chat about this thing that they were pulling together, and that I was able to wedge myself into this into this project and in any way that I could, and I'm glad it's become the role that I have now.
A space for books, yes, but also for belonging. That's Act 4 Books, and Maggie Peace is one of the people making it possible. Next up, we meet 3 creatives who have returned to Perry with a goal of sparking something new through a storytelling revival called the Nameless Club, and it's hosted at Shake on the Lake's home, Theater at 37.
Explore the Underground Railroad's final stop. Learn about how the Latine workforce organized to overcome discrimination and follow the timeline of immigration in Western New York.
So remember, history surrounds you and includes you.
Watch Compact History on the Buffalo Toronto Public Media YouTube channel.
From your morning commute to quiet evenings at home, Buffalo Toronto Public Media is always there with trusted news, inspiring stories, and timeless music. It's your connection to a world of wonder. This is Public Media.
Welcome back to Tapestry. I'm your host, Lynn Bader. We're going to close this episode with Josh Rice and Pilar McKay from Shake on the Lake, and Kate Welshofer, writer and former television host, 3 creatives whose careers have taken them far beyond Perry, but who have returned to help shape its next chapter.
I went away to college, and Pilar did similarly. Pilar and I were both in the state of New York until Pilar went to grad school out in the West Coast. Mm-hmm. And then I went to work for a theater in where everyone goes to make it, Little Rock, Arkansas. And then we eventually found our ways back together once we both started to leave those respective places and move more toward the East Coast.
When I came back from Los Angeles, I got involved in organizations like the Perry Main Street Association. I was curious what people thought they wanted to do in the community. My background is in social research, so I have a lot of great ideas, but I'm more interested in how to bring the community's ideas to life. I knew about Josh's career. Josh said, how about we do Shakespeare at Silver Lake? So we started very small. Shake on the Lake has always had a philosophy of just slow growth, and we started with 4 performances at Silver Lake, which is our home. 3 years later, we went on tour to 2 counties, and then from there, this will be the 10th year of our tour.
Yeah, we've reached 10 Western New York counties, bringing our work to thousands of people, mostly in other rural communities like Perry, with the idea that when I was growing up, I just didn't really have a lot of access to the arts. At least my family was not super into the arts, and I didn't realize that theater was an option necessarily. When I came back here, what felt important was to try to expose other people that maybe would be in my shoes, that just didn't realize that maybe there are other options other than some of the ones that we currently think about in Western New York for young people, and for them to be able to see that and see it in a diversity of faces on our stages, performing these plays is a really meaningful thing.
Kate, for you grew up in Perry?
I did. I grew up here. Okay. We moved here when I was about 7 years old, which was sort of funny because my mother moved into the same house when she was 7 years old. So yes, grew up here in Perry, and just always, I think, loved it here.
So did you always love it here, or was there a time where you were like, I'm going to go out and see the world?
Well, it's funny. I think that I just felt like that's what you're supposed to do. I have 2 older sisters. They're 8 and 11 years older than I am, and they had done that. So everything they did, I thought, well, that's just what you do. You grow up, and you go to college, and you go get a job somewhere else, and you move away. To me, it wasn't necessarily that I didn't like home or I didn't like it here, or I was, I got to get out of this one-horse town. I never really thought of it that way. I just thought, well, that's just what you do.
Right. So where did you go?
So from here, I went to college at St. Bonaventure, and then I went and I worked in Rochester was my first job, and I was a producer to start with and worked there for about 10 years. From Rochester, I was in Albany for another 10 years, and then I got the call and came to Buffalo.
So talk to me about how the 3 of you connected around the idea of bringing storytelling to Perry?
Chip, who is not here but will be here tonight, kind of first floated this idea of like, hey, we learned this thing about William Pryor Letchworth.
So Chip is my husband, and he and I had attended a lecture with Conrad Baker, who's an educator at Letchworth State Park. And so he was talking about stories of Letchworth and history of Letchworth and all of these things. And he mentions about the Nameless Club. So we're in this lecture, and it's in the Three Falls Cidery. So it's not like it's a dark theater or anything like that. So Chip immediately starts texting. In the middle, we're in the front row, and Conrad's looking right at us. I'm thinking, what are you doing? So he's texting, and I was looking at him, he goes, I had to text Josh and tell him about the Nameless Club immediately. So it was like, that's how it all started, this is immediately something that would be so fun to have a storytelling club that brings people together. And we've done it one time, and it was just so incredible to see people come out. And there were people who I thought were authors, writers by trade. No, not at all. And it was so surprising to see that there were so many people like, no, I work in IT. But they came with their stories, and their storytelling is incredible. It was a really amazing experience. We have a theme usually, so it's kind of on the theme. So the first theme, remind me what the first theme was. Now all of a sudden I blanked on it.
I think it was resilience.
Resilience. Good thing it wasn't memory.
And tonight's is transitions.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be about glasses.
Hi, good. How are you? Nothing changes if nothing changes. Those were actually the first words that came to mind from the
He is someone I have known since the second grade. Please welcome Mr. Luke Daly.
I think it's interesting how people are curious about Perry, and we were written up, it was at one point as being curiously hip, which I really enjoy that. I think that's wonderful.
What are your hopes for the impact that you've made in the community to then continue, that momentum continues?
I'm hopeful that next gen feels and sees what we've been able to accomplish as a permission to jump in themselves and start something that they want to see.
You all have proven that Perry is indeed hip.
Curiously so.
Thank you.
Curiously so.
Yeah, I'll take that compliment. Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
That wraps up this episode of Tapestry. Next week, we head to Erie County to visit Akron for 3 more wonderful stories. I hope you'll join me. Tapestry is a production of Buffalo Toronto Public Media, and you can listen to all of our episodes at btpm.org or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Lynn Bader. Thank you for listening.